Hey guys, it's Fanto, back at again with another Card Fight Vanguard deck profiles. If you guys enjoyed, don't like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we are covering DZ set 14 for Zorga Phantoms. I did not expect to be doing a Phantom deck for Zorga going into DZ set 14. In fact, the day I'm recording this is the day after I recorded all the other Phantom decks because I truly didn't believe I'd be doing Zorga, and then I tried to throw together a list this morning and I actually liked it, so therefore we're doing a deck profile on it. And honestly, the deck is actually relatively interesting because before it was already like a very deck thinning heavy deck because apparently all the Crimson Moon decks do that, but Zorga got more cards that can do it, and Zorga also got access to a 5th attack, which some people are 50-50 about because some like it and some don't. Let's get started and see what we got. First today we have our energy generator is our ride deck crest. You may have our deck in your ride deck. Auto ride deck when you would ride, put this card to your crest zone. Even when second, your energy charge 3. Continuous, you can have up to 10 energy. Auto being rare phase, energy charge 3. Then act per turn, energy plus 7 draw card. On pretty solid, you get a free 3 energy every single turn. Even when second, you get extra 3 on top of that. And once you have 7 more energy, you can blast it to draw. You will pretty much never use the EB7 to draw skill because you have cards like Margaret who search your moon and get you draw power for the same cost. Not to mention the fact that, you know, your Black Tears Husk Dragon costs energy for its skill, which you don't really have to worry too much about. But also our Rat that can be called up from drops on cost energy. So 9 times out of 10, you won't really be using the energy plus 7 skill, but it's a solid ability to have in case you don't draw any of those cards or you don't use them often. Then we have our starter in Regain Researcher Dream Nibbling, Grade 0 boost, 5k, shows 6k base, honor upon second draw card, standard starter, nothing special if you draw if you go second. You can choose to make this any starter you want, another randomly requires Dream Nibbling. I choose to make a Dream Nibbling though because the canonical starter for Zorga. As for Overtrigger, we have Star Dragon, DD Infinitude, Eldo Breath. Grades of boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger, you have a trigger in your deck. Reveal as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one, get plus 1 move for the turn. And if it didn't check, activate the additional flip, would you get to double the power in critical of all 4 units until the end of the turn, and increase the double in power in critical when it's activated. So most people know what Eldo Breath does because most people have PTSD from it. But basically, if you don't have PTSD from it, let me just give you like a good image to what you're going to be looking at if someone stacks against you, specifically in this deck. Most likely, they will have a column at 40,000 power. The Vanguard column, depending on what turn it is, let's just say it's the bare minimum, will be 26,000. Actually, no, it'll be 36,000, assuming they have not pulled triggers and assuming that they have not boosted yet. And then also not to mention the fact that the front row will now have double critical. Those two have double critical. And then your other rear guard, who I've chosen not to mention yet, will now have quadruple critical and I believe 80k if I'm doing the math right. So yeah, and all this can be done on the first grade 3 turn, mind you. So if you don't have PTSD from Eldo Breath, that's a good picture you can look forward to with this deck. So yeah, one of Eldo. Then we have our normal triggers. We have 3 front and endearing Vendor Matena, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 0 power, auto and retire from guard Zork and may shove for the soul. So originally I ran draws in Zorga and I do prefer the draws to fronts. However, with the new cards we have added in, the deck definitely has more soul issues comparatively than before. So I'd rather run Matena to send to soul as a front trigger, and not to mention the fact that the deck always had a power problem and fronts can help mitigate that problem a little bit. So I prefer Matena, but I do understand that draws are needed. So if you want to like rainbow trigger, you 100% can, but I like to run the 3 front followed by 8 crit. 4 being chain like cluster, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. The other being Star Aggression Dragon, grade 0 boost, 50k, 5k power. You can make them any vanilla crits you want. I did say the deck has a soul problem, so you could run Patrol Boy Decker Cop, except the deck makes rear guards so easily without spending a cost that if you call a critical trigger just to get it to soul, you are honestly minusing more than you are plussing. So yeah, 8 vanilla crit works, followed by the 3 effect front. And again, you can rainbow trigger it, but I also have 4 heal and Alterate Spear Dragon, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Standard vanilla heal, make it any vanilla heal you want. The reason why I chose to make Alterate Spear Dragon is because like Star Aggression Dragon, they're my favorite like pair of critical and heal triggers in Brandt / Card Fight Vanguard in general. So by default, if I want one of them, I gotta run the other. And moving on to our grade 1s, we have 4 copies of our lovely Crimson Moonlight. Grade 1 normal order, play for Vanguard to Phantom, check the top 5 and choose up to 1 card from one and reveal it. If you did not reveal a card, you shuffle the deck and you draw a card. If you did reveal a card, you perform on the following and then shuffle your deck. If the revealed card is a unit card of grade less than to your Vanguard, call it rear guard circle, or the revealed card is a Crimson Moon card, put it to your hand, and continuous this card cannot be bound other than for the cost of your Phantom skill ability. Continuous bind zone, this card cannot be chosen or moved to any other zones by any player's card ability. And act damage zone, put this card into your drop zone, put the top card of your deck into your damage zone. On pretty solid. Zorga Phantom is one of the few Phantoms that only requires you to bind 1 moon every single turn and cannot go up from that for its Phantom skill, meaning as long as you just consistently see your moons, you're completely fine if you don't have all of them at once, which is pretty cool. Not to mention the fact that if they do end up in damage zone, you can put them into your drop zone, and that way you got your free Phantom skill right there. On top of that, the fact that it can't be bound other than by a Phantom skill ability means your opponent can't just Social Doji it away, and also the fact that it's top 5 search is just generically like really good. Like no matter what, you get something out of it. You either get a free rear guard, which can be so many different beasts of cards, or you get a free hand card if you bricked in that top 5 search, or you get another copy of the moon. All around Crimson Moonlight, it's a really great order for deck thinning, and the deck has a lot of grade 1s, which means you can play it as early as as turn 1. Technically, you can play it in all the Phantom decks as early as turn 1, but the decks that have more grade 1s benefit from it more because you're less likely to whiff. So the fact that you can early game rush with your opponent with the grade 1 call is really nice. Again, you could get a moon to your hand, you could get a free draw, and your opponent can't really touch it, so 4 of. Then we have our normal unit grade 1s, 2 copies of Creation Demonic Beast Bite Engraver, so grade 1 boost like I showed, AK base. Act drop zone, if your rear guard has a Demonic Beast Alchemix Body Ubermensch token on it and you do not have a rear guard with the same card name as the card on the board, EB3, call to rear guard, so get 5k for the turn, regardless of what grade either player is at, which means this thing can be a 13k grade 1 on turn 1 actually, assuming you went second, which is nice. And then auto win Alchemix, choose one of your Demonic Beast Alchemist Body Ubermensch tokens that's Alchemix 2 and give that unit 10,000 power. So pump 10k to your Ubermensch token, considering the fact you can only Alchemix when you're on grade 3. That token's already a 25k, but when it's Alchemix, it's going to get 5k from Zorga. So that token's at 30k already without any other triggers or boost applied to it. So pretty cool buff there for the free 10k, and the fact that it can Spirit Call itself is great. The reason why I run it at 2 of is because this deck has so much deck thinning. The next 2 cards we're going to go over can deck thin, and then there's another card in this deck that outright just says when played, search your deck for any normal unit and yeet it to drop zone. So yeah, we can afford to run only 2 copies of it. Honestly, you can afford to run 1, but I like to have it as a 2 of just in case one of them does get damage check, because you want to have as many different Alchemix pop targets as possible on the board to give your Ubermensch more abilities. As for our other grade 1s, we have 2 copies of our Grade Researcher Hendrina. Grade 1 boost back shield, AK base. So act hand, if your order zone does not have a card with the same card name as her in it, and you have a regrain Battle Creation Lab in the order zone, and also a card has not been put into your order zone this turn, put this card to your order zone to draw a card. So over the course of the game, you can slowly put your regrain resources into your order zone like they were orders to end up drawing a card to replace them, which is solid. And then her order zone ability is act order zone once per turn. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater Zorga, and your bind zone is 2 or more Crimson Moon cards, so you can proc this on your second grade 3 turn. Just a card from your hand, and your Vanguard gets specifically triple drive time to turn, so it is targetable by Elementary Sanctitude, but I mean, still, triple drive for a Vanguard is pretty solid. And then auto rear guard, when it boosts a grade 3, get a Vanguard Zorga on the card name. It gets 5,000 for the battle, and then you can soul boss 1 to check the top 3, choose a card from one of them, discard it, shuffle the deck, and she'll get additional 2,000 power, making her a 15k booster. Always is a very solid card to have because she gets you deck thinning, she gets the Vanguard triple drive, and the standard replace herself for a hand card is pretty solid as well. You only really need 2 copies of her, 1 to put into the order zone for triple drive, and if you do call her to board, that's completely fine, but you don't really need to worry about calling her to board. But if she gets there, obviously you want to put her in back center to get benefit from Zorga boosting. So 2 of Hendrina. And we have 2 copies of Regain Researcher Depths Expose, one of our new cards. Great on boost 5k shield, AK base. Continuous Guards Oracle. If your order zone has a copy of it in it, it gets 5,000 shield. So one of them goes into order zone to its ability, the other one's a 10k shield for the rest of the game, which is pretty solid. And then act order zone once per turn by soul blasting 1. You check the top 7 for to 1 genome gel from one of them, discard it, and shuffle the deck. So you know this is your way to pull your rats, your dogs, your human bioroid thingy, and your other, I guess, monkey bioroid thing is what that classify as. So cool that it can pull targets from the top 7. And again, it's a soul blast. That's kind of the annoying part because it eats into the soul blast with Hendrina and also with our card that free mills anything, but still a very solid grade 1 to have in the deck. So 2 of. Then we have 3 copies of Regain Researcher Flesh and Bone Tearing. Grade 1 boost back I showed AK base. And act order zone once per turn. If your Vanguard has Zorga in the card name, you can retire 1 or more up to 2 rear guards to draw a card. And then if you did retire 2 rear guards, you countercharge 1, which is pretty cool. So you retire at least 1 to get a plus, and then if you retire 2, you get an additional plus of a countercharge, so pretty solid there. And then auto drop zone, when you Alchemix, if you do not have a copy of this on your board, you can call it to an open back or rear guard circle, so behind your Alchemix token, or now behind maybe your lovely Uproarious Scream, the one that you superior call from Alchemixing. At the end of the turn, you retire this unit, that way you can keep looping the skill back every single turn. Our Flesh and Bone Tearing, really great grade 1. It gets you extra hand cards, and it gets you countercharge back when you retire rear guards, and considering the fact that Zorg gets superior call stuff from drop zone relatively easily, and the deck has cards that can call themselves from drop zone on their own relatively easily, one of which being free, mind you, and the other one being virtually free because almost nothing else takes energy in the deck. Yeah, pretty good resource management there, and the fact that it's an 8k booster that recalls us during the battle phase is also really helpful because it benefits out our Ubermensch token or even the unit that superior calls itself during the battle phase. So solid 3 of in Bone Tearing. And then we have 4 copies of Creation Demonic Beast Shadow Eater Running Dog. Great on boost 5k shield, AK base. Auto inputs on rear guard circle from the hand. If your order zone has a regrain Battle Creation Research Lab in it, soul boss 1, search deck with 1 normal unit, discard it, and shuffle the deck. This card hard searches any normal and yeets it, so I mean, this is a way to get a free Flesh and Bone Tearing into the drop zone. When you're late into the game, it's just a way to get any excess of these 2 into the drop zone, or even just this one into the drop zone just to increase trigger count. Obviously, in the early game, you want to try to get Bite Engraver and especially Cranial Wing into your drop zone. That way you can pull off combos with them with your Ubermensch token as early as possible. And then auto when Alchemix, draw a card for free, and then by counterblasting when you draw an additional card. Very solid all around, because the only other card that actually cost CB in the deck, well, I guess now it's Upward Scream as well, but the only other cards before that were Margaret and Zorga, and you would never run into a CB problem. Now you can somewhat run into them, but at the same time, we have an amazing counter charger over here, and Flesh and Bone Tearing, and also that counterblast is not mandatory, so you can just choose to not counterblast. And I mean, yes, you lose out on the additional draw, but you still get a draw from the original Alchemix anyway. So for a Shadow Eater running dog, it pulls any normal you want out of your deck as early as turn 1 for a simple Soul Blast, mind you, and when Alchemix, you get to plus once, if not twice off it if you want to spend an extra CB, so 4 of. Then we have 4 PGs in Durable Pacifist, Great on Boost, 0 Sosuke base, Contains Sentinel, you have to force out those deck, from a guard circle, choose or mutes, it cannot be in the battle, and hand streamer cards, you choose a card from your hand, discard it. Standard PG, nothing specified, it basically means if this one winner cards in hand, when you place them on guard circle, you don't have to discard them. Great, because that means be super aggressive in the early game, basically just spam the dog, and then the rest of the deck will do the rest, because you will just be able to revive these 2 for free, and then your opponent does eventually counterattack you when you eventually get to low hand cards. Throw down Durable Pacifist, Skill, and Middle Finger, good to go. This deck is very consistent when it comes to pulling out rear guards. It's basically like Abuelis, because you have 2 cards that superior call themselves. One of them does it for free, one of them basically does it for free, because you get 3 energy every single turn, and you can get them into drop zone with 2 different cards relatively easily in the early game. So like once you get both of them in the drop zone, not to mention the fact that you're always recreating a rear guard with the order card, the research lab, and Zorga can recreate rear guards from the drop zone, you're pretty much only ever using the PG discard skill if your opponent is hitting you 24/7 with the biggest attacks they can, or if you brick. Either way, Durable Pacifist, very solid PG to have. You can make it any of the Brandt Gate PGs such as Violate Dragon or Planet Wall Dragon or Zorga Arms, but I choose to make it Durable Pacifist because it came out close to the time of Zorga Phantom's release. As for last grade 1 in the deck, one of the rad deck and the main deck of Regain Security, Rank or Chain, Great on Boost, back to Shoda K base. Auto when placed by writing from a grade 0 unit, reveal a grade 3 card with Zorga in the carding from the rad deck, and put a Regain Battle Creation Research Lab token into your order zone. Moving on to our grade 2s, 3 copies of Creation Demonic Beast Cranial Wing, grade 2 NSFI Kashio, 10k base, auto drop zone when your Demonic Beast Alchemix Body Ubermensch token is placed on rearguard circle. If you do not have a copy of this unit on your board, you may call it to rearguard circle. Then if you called it by an effect while your Vanguard is a grade 3 grade Zorga, gets 5,000 power for the turn. But the fact that you can superior call this card regardless of what grade either player is at is great, because the token order allows you to rest it immediately, and since, you know, Rank or Chain gets it on place, even if you are going first, so you don't get to attack first, you can still ditch Cranial Wing for ride deck, immediately rest the order after you ride Rank or Chain, and then call Cranial Wing from the drop zone, just so you have a 5k interceptor to help bully down your opponent in terms of defensive power. And again, if you went second, then you can still do the same play, except now you can be aggressive with it. So Cranial Wing is really good for that option, and then auto when Alchemix, choose one of your Demonic Beast Alchemix Body Ubermensch tokens, and this card's Alchemix 2, and it gets +1 critical for the turn. Now you see why I said the overtrigger made that thing 4 critical and an 80k beat stick. Cranial Wing is a very solid grade 2 to have. It calls itself back for free. It gives crit pressure to a unit that is basically a 40k swing on its own. So very solid grade 2 to have in the deck overall. You could bring it down to 2 copies, because as long as you have 4 copies of the dog and the ability to send them to drop zone via Death Expose, you don't really have to worry too much about having high numbers of Cranial Wing, but I like to have it at 3 copies just in case, because it is a really good early game card to draw, because it's just a free recurrence outside of that once it hits the drop zone. Then we have 3 copies of Creation Demonic Beast Uproar Scream, grade 2 5k shield 10k base. If you are going to take down a copy of Cranial Wing, this is what you tech it up for. Auto when Alchemix, if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, CB1 and put this card into your drop zone. So Alchemix, you just basically put cards underneath the Alchemix target like overdress. So put this card from the quote-unquote original dress into the drop zone. Call this card from the drop zone to the rearguard circle, and it gets 10,000 power for the turn. At the end of the turn, bind the called unit. So basically, you only get to use it once, but it's a 20k swinger, which is nice, and you can still, and you do it right before drive check, so any triggers you do get, you can put it onto it. Not to mention the fact, again, that Bone Tearing can call itself behind itself, which is good, and, you know, your Ubermensch token that you Alchemix this to, well, it's already getting power from Zorga, and it's already getting power from the other skills. You don't have to worry too much about boosting it. All around Upward Scream is really good. It's the 5th attack for Zorga, so it adds a little bit more offensive pressure to the deck. The deck does want more numbers, because basically without Persona Ride, your rear guards are like 28k, and again, like somewhere between 30 and 40, depending on where you put Bone Tearing at with the Ubermensch token. And the Vanguard's like 18k, because it's probably going to boost it, unless it's boosted by Hendrina. But either way, though, it's still a very solid grade 2 to have in the deck, because it does initiate mode attacking, therefore it does put on pressure towards your opponent, so 3 of. Then we have 4 copies of Piercing Lover Margaret, grade 2 5k shield, 10k base, auto discard from your hand riding from the rad deck. If your Vanguard's a Phantom, Soul Blast 1 or EB3, search deck for 1 Crimson Moon card, reveal potential over deck. Yeah, feel free to spend the EB on that one, and then auto and put on guard circle from hand. If your Vanguard is a Phantom, CB1 or EB3 to draw a card. Again, feel free to spend the EB most times because outside of Bite Engraver, you're not spending EB at all. And honestly, after a certain point, you don't have to worry about Bite Engraver's EB cost because Zorga will be able to revive it for free. So by all means, you can feel free to spam the EB with Margaret to either pull a Moon, wins this card from Ride deck, which is really good because it just translates to basically a free rear guard, or you end up just using the guard skill to end up drawing cards that she's placed on guard circle. That way you can increase your ability to guard. Though keep in mind though, because of all the deck thing you're doing, you will deck out relatively quickly, especially if you don't really recognize that you're about to deck out, because that's what I tend to do with Zorga a lot for some reason. So yeah, just make sure you keep track of your decks so you don't accidentally deck yourself out. So 4 of Margaret. Then we have 1 copy of the Ride deck of our last grade 2, Regraying Creature, Black Tears Husk Dragon, one of the better grade 2 Ride decks for the Crimson Moon decks. So auto and wrote upon by a grade 3 into a Zorga, and the card name by E being 3, you check the top 7, just to 2 cards without Sentinels from among them, reveal them, choose one of the revealed cards, put it to your hand, discard the other, and if you do not discard a card, you search after 1 Crimson Moon card, discard it, and shuffle the deck. You check the top 7. You are forced to add, technically you don't have to show 2 cards, but you are at least forced, if you want to, you show one of them, so something like a Persona or literally anything you want, you add that to hand, and then you can choose not to show the second card, and what that does is that instead of shuffling, you immediately then go grab a Crimson Moon from the deck and send that to drop zone and shuffle. So if you don't see a Crimson Moon in the top 7, basically what this is telling you to do is this gets you a free Phantom skill for that first grade 3 turn, and you get any cards you want into your hand from the top 7 outside of a PG. And if you end up seeing a Moon in that top 7 as well, well, you can just add the Moon to your hand, then not pick anything else, and then just search your deck for another Moon and send it to drop zone. That way guaranteeing your Phantom skill for 2 turns. On Black Tears Husk Dragon, really great grade 2. It's a solid top 7 search. It mills out the Crimson Moon for free and adds anything you want from the top 7 to your hand as long as it's not a PG, so one of them in the Ride deck. And then as for our last unit card in the deck, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the Ride deck, of Savant of Taboo, Zorga Phantom. Grade 3 10% 13k base, auto Vanguard. When it attacks by counterbalancing 1, you choose any number of your Genome Gem rear guards with different card names from each other. If you chose 2 or more units, choose a Demonic Beast Alchemix Body Ubermensch token on your rear guard circle, and Alchemix all the Genome Gels chosen by this effect to that unit. If your Bind Zone then has 1 or more Crimson Moons, that Demonic Beast Alchemix Body Ubermensch token and this unit both get 5,000 for the turn, and if it has 3 or more Crimson Moons, they get 10,000 instead of 5,000, and then you stack all the GM tokens under the token, basically. So basically how that works is, let's say for example, Ubermensch is on the board, and then you have Upward Scream, Cranial Wing, Bite Engraver, and Shadow Eater Dog. What you do is you Alchemagic all 4 of those to your token. They all go underneath it. All of their Alchemix abilities proc off, and then if you have a Moon in your Bind Zone or 3 Moons, then Zorga and the token get powered equal to X amount of Moons in Bind Zone, which is pretty cool. And then Phantom skill, act Vanguard once per turn by binding a Crimson Moon card from your hand or drop zone. Choose the same number of your Genome Gels from your drop zones, the number of Crimson Moons in your Bind Zone, call into rear guard circle. So on your first grade 3 turn, you only get 1 rear guard. Your second grade 3 turn, you get 2 rear guards. Third grade 3 turn, you get 3 rear guards, etc., etc. So really cool that Zorga's Phantom skill scales every single turn. You're literally just going to get more and more rear guards as the game goes on, which applies a lot of pressure to you, which makes it a lot easier just to use Bone Tearing to murder off rear guards and then get resources out of it because they're going to come back twice, once from their own skill and then once from Zorga. So pretty solid there, and again, you're making rear guards without committing hand cards half the time, so you can just be super defensive with your hand and then just keep making the rear guards that you mill out to the drop zone via cards like Shadow Running Eater Dog and also our lovely Depths Expos. The only downside to Zorga is that, again, most times he's not going to get boosted, so it's pretty much like Impal Dio's problem, where he's not going to get boosted half the time, and then the center column will always be relatively weak, but the side columns will be okay-ish, but the side columns are also nothing to write home about because they're basically in the 30s or like maybe low 40s, but not hitting the magic number of the 40s, and that would be 43, by the way, so lower of the 2 magic numbers. It's an okay-ish grade 3 in terms of like what it does because it is consistent, but the issue is that it doesn't have power, and that's what puts Zorga away from being so good because its deck then is just as good as Blackmire does. And then we have our Regrain Battle Creation Research Lab token. It's a grade 1 token order. This represents a Regrain Battle Creation Research Lab token cannot be put into your main deck. Continuous Order Zone, you cannot ride grade 3 regarded cards that don't have Zorga in the card names. And then Act Order Zone, rest is to call a Demonic Beast Alchemix Body Ubermensch token to the rear guard circle. What is that token, you may ask? Well, it's a grade 1 with boost and 0 power and 0 shield. It represents Demonic Beast Alchemix Body Ubermensch token. It cannot be put into the main deck. Continuous Rear Guard, it gets 5,000 power for each grade of your Vanguard, so it scales as the game goes on. So again, you can pull it off on turn 1 when you're on Rank or Chain, and if you have access to something like Cranial Wing, well, there you go, you got a superior call out of it. Then Auto Rear Guard once per turn, when this unit Alchemixes, stand this unit, and if this unit is in the back row, you may move it to an open front rear guard circle, like Calm as it. So that means it can boost your Cranial Wing / Uproar Screams on the grade 3 turns, and then after they get Alchemax to the token moves up to the front row and also gets to stand out of it, so you get that 4th attack. But again, if you have Uproar Scream, you have the 5th attack. And then out a rear guard at the end of the turn, retire this unit. This effect is mandatory. So you can just have it in the front row and like put something like Shadow Eater Dog or Bite Engraver behind it and then attack in the early game. And that way your opponent can't really get rid of anything important on your board unless they're running rear guard retirers, because the thing in the front row that they could easily kill is going to die at the end of the turn anyway. So very solid token. Its power skills with the Vanguard is great, which I mean the max it can hit is 15k on its own. But again, you combine something like with Bite Engraver's skill and with the Vanguard skill, and automatically it's a 30k base on its own. And without further ado, this is it. So hope you guys enjoy. The deck is actually really consistent. Like I said before, you deck thin a lot. It's very easy to send Cranial Wing and Bite Engraver into the drop zone. We have the 5th attack, which does help Zorga put a little bit more pressure on the opponent, and the deck can just bully down the opponent consistently throughout the game with U-Branch token, especially if you get either Cranial Wing, Bite Engraver, or God forbid for your opponent both into your drop zone. Your Order Researcher cards, like they help out a lot with resources, whether it's deck thinning, triple drive, or resource management. The only issue the deck really does have is just the power threshold, because again, the rear guards hit for not the strongest numbers, and the center column is really bad. This deck really does remind me of Gab Bullies, especially because Gab Bullies is the only other Crimson Moon card that you can only bind one per turn. Like Zorga walked so Gab can run, because Gab scales almost the exact same way Zorga does, but it gets slightly more benefit out of the binding of the Crimson Moons. But without further ado, I'm just going to hear it. Hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, follow Twitch. I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your Vanguards.